Good morning. Welcome to the live stream. I am not prepared today. I am running late. I don't have anything set up. I have no good excuse. Welcome. My name is Angela. I'm a front-end developer and software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. If you are new here, thank you for clicking on this live stream, replay, whatever your status is while you're watching. On this channel, we do pretty much all vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I got nothing against frameworks of any kind. I just really like the basics. I like building clean UIs. I'm into super simple. I don't like worrying about node and package managers and frameworks and all that razzmatazz, even though I do know how to use them. This weekend, however, this is a DevOps weekend, and I'm calling this a happy DevOps day for those who celebrate as if it were a holiday. I'm declaring it a holiday. Here's why. I think that more front-end developers need to learn real DevOps. I think it actually aligns perfectly with my vanilla coding philosophy because how I teach DevOps is how I learned it. How long ago? 2014, 2015. That's exactly how I teach it. I'm a big fan of a LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. I don't pretend to know. I'm distracted by dust on my keyboard here, but I'm also deep in thought. I don't pretend to know everything about Linux and Apache, but I know a bit. And I can tell you that having ChatGPT to help explain some things that I've been doing for over a decade, but that I didn't fully understand has been pretty incredible. And I have some context to what we did yesterday where we did that initial LAMP setup. I have some context on the permissions and the owner group permissions. So I'm going to get into that a little bit today. But what we're also going to do today is we are going to, this is a conversation I'm having with ChatGPT. Let me find the correct conversation. We'll get back to this later because I definitely want to give you that context. But what we're going to do today is, what do I want to do here? I'm usually ready to go right here. We're going to deploy this as a subdomain. We're going to add a virtual host to a LAMP stack. So we set up this domain yesterday called practicelayouts.com. This is not a landing page that I have set up. I didn't design or build a landing page for this domain name. I will eventually, but for now, I just put up a blank HTML page. I also put in a no index, no follow. So if you want to practice this and you don't have any, you don't actually have a landing page ready to go, but you at least have the domain, just put in an H1 with the name of your site. You could put anything in here and then add a meta tag for robots, no index, no follow, so it doesn't get indexed by Google. So we're going to deploy this, and it's going to be a subdomain, and it's going to be italia.practicelayouts.com. And it's going to be a completely independent site from practicelayouts.com. So you're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. So let's see who's here. I know there's a couple people here. So go Elmo, go Elmo, formerly Go Elmo Go, also known as Malik Robinson, is here. He is a mod in the chat. So is Rahul from Nepal. Welcome. And Rahul says, let's try upping JavaScript skills also. I am also revising fundamentals. Yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Even with my all vanilla philosophy, I was talking yesterday about how I do think that I want to start doing more with Express in 2026 because I think that Express also aligns really, really well with the vanilla a vanilla mindset, I guess, for lack of a better word, because if deployment and DevOps closes the loop on one end of front end development, I think that something like Express sort of closes the loop on the other end, where we're talking about APIs, endpoints, custom methods, authentication, handling CORS policies, massaging data for a custom endpoint, things like that. Although we can still massage data just with vanilla JavaScript inside of our app. But my point is that, oh, and hiding, I mean, I think the big one is keeping your authentication keys, see your API keys secret, right? If you build an Express app, you can keep those keys secret and then build a new URL for your API endpoints, and then you can also control the CORS policies and caching, and you could just do so much. And I've done a fair amount of that with Express, but I would like to do more, and I think that would really help improve my own JavaScript skills. But then there's the part of JavaScript where I just want to get better at DOM manipulation in general. And then there's the whole, I already mentioned this, like massaging data. That is so common. My experience building apps, the most JavaScript I've ever had to do is always around getting that data getting that data formatted, configured in a way that is usable for my app. So at my last job at the University of St. Thomas, we used Vue.js for everything. We were also very deep into Salesforce. And we had backend developers who that was their only job, was to build APIs out of that Salesforce data that we used. And I was very fortunate that oftentimes those developers could build the API exactly how I wanted it. So if it was a brand new project, they would say, hey, how do you need this to look? And they would build it exactly like that. If I needed modifications, they would update the API. Many times, though, we had legacy APIs that have been around for a long time that nobody was going to go back and modify for me. But we needed that data in a Vue component or a Vue app, and I had to do all of that. I had to massage all of that data, rearrange it, get it into a usable format. It's just very common in front-end development, especially if you're heavy on the app full stack end of front end development. I would love it if I could be a front end developer that only built UIs, but that is not how the world works. Front end developers, to me, this is just an opinion, we are like full stack developers, I think. So I don't know. The line is blurry. The line is blurry in my opinion. So yes, Rahul, also a mod in the chat, thank you Rahul, has a great point here about upping our JavaScript skills. And I guess I see a comment like this and I'm like, yes, 100%. But also it's like, it covers a lot of ground. It covers a lot of ground. So, and Rahul is asking, do you know something about ORM? I know nothing about ORM. I don't even know it. I don't even know what that means. So ORM. Object Relational Mapping Development. Uses tools to bridge object-oriented programming languages with relational databases, letting developers manage data using familiar objects instead of writing SQL, which speeds up development, reduces repetitive code, improves security, like preventing SQL injection, and makes code more maintainable by abstracting database specifics, though it can add overhead for very complex queries. Popular ORMs include Entity Framework, C#, Hibernate Java, and Django ORM Python. So I haven't specifically heard of this term, no. And I hesitate to Express is very much a back end it's very much back end. It is not considered front end, but in my opinion, it's important for front end develop. I think it would be smart for front end developers to understand Express and to know how to deal with that API stuff. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but I just think it's such a great tool based on my own experience and what I've needed to do in the past, the kinds of development work that I've needed to do in the past. So I think it's worth, especially even if you just used it to manage like CORS policies and permissions, or I think probably also, even if you just used it to build a couple custom endpoints for your API and hid like an API key, even if you didn't massage any data, if you just did those things, I think it's worth it to know how to set up an Express server. So, and Rahul says, I'll be using this for my new project, so I'm currently learning this also. Oh, I would love to hear more about it once you get into it. Sounds like you are into it. So, yeah, I think this is really cool. I love it. We love learning new things here. So, okay, let's get started. Angela, what are you doing? Okay, so here is our instructions. Here's our terminal. I'll make this a little bigger. Yeah, we had a lot of fun yesterday, so I'm looking forward to working on this again today. So I am going to open up our instructions for FileZilla, because we are going to do this with FileZilla. I'm going to put this in the chat. I found this tutorial on DigitalOcean, and DigitalOcean, one of the reasons that I started using them over a decade ago is because their documentation is just so darn good. And I thought, you know what? Let's actually follow some of their documentation. Now, we are using Ubuntu 24.04. We're not using 20, but this is the most up-to-date tutorial they have related to Apache virtual hosts. And actually, I found this morning and I was like, great, we'll use this. Then I read through it and I was like, actually, I don't think I need this. Because we did most of this work yesterday, and the examples that they give, not examples, what they say to do to create virtual hosts, we are doing something quite a bit different. So I really don't need to follow all of this. They have a thing here about granting permissions. Again, I'm going to talk more about this. I have a little more context about how I'm handling the Apache permissions that I'm going to get into after we're done. The main part of this that we really need is creating the new virtual host files, because I think that this is going to be familiar. Yesterday, if you were here, 000 default conf. This is the port 80 Apache configuration file. And then, of course, when we install Let's Encrypt, it makes a copy of this for port 443, which is the HTTPS. But we have to do this part first, and we have to make sure that this is enabled. The HTTP is enabled first. Then we can install the SSL certificate. So let's actually log into our server. So we set up yesterday a LAMP stack. We went through this entire process. If you're brand new today, we went through a whole process. Yeah, let's actually review for a moment. We logged in initially as root. Since it's a snapshot, droplets are always a snapshot. You want to make sure you're doing an update and an upgrade. We created a sudo user, and I did the sudo user Heidi. That's technically my dog's name, but that's the username that I chose. We are logging in with SSH. We disabled root access and password authentication, so it's only SSH. We established that www-data is the default Apache owner and group name, and we added Heidi to the www data group name. So Heidi can share the permissions that www data has. And again, that's the context I'm going to give you a little bit later. We're going to use FileZilla. I've been using rsync for a really long time, and I recently learned that Windows users don't natively have the ability to use rsync. You can install, I think, a Linux terminal to do it. So we're just going to go ahead and use FileZilla because these are static websites, so that's no big deal. And then we walked through the entire process of setting up Let's Encrypt. We also walked through the process of editing our Apache virtual host files. And again, this is just for the root domain. And that is where we left off. So, okay, so let's log in. Boom. And this is our dashboard. So we're going to, let's go ahead and navigate to, hang on, cd var. There we go. So if we list files here, the default is HTML. And this is where if we cd into HTML, we have this index.html file, and that's what this is right here. It's just a plain old index.html file, and we can even look at this. So we'll open the nano editor. Let's see here, index.html, and you can see here that this is exactly what's showing in the browser. So great, perfect, wonderful. Let's cd back out. We also have italia.practicelayouts.com. So let's cd into this. And then you need to have a folder called public_HTML. So we'll cd into this. These are the best practices. And there's nothing in this folder. So here's what we need to do. We're going to go ahead and use FileZilla. Yep, there's nothing in here. And we are going to deploy our files for this landing page into this italia.practicelayouts.com/public_HTML. But those DNS settings haven't been set up yet. We haven't created the virtual host, so there's nothing to see in the browser. But let's at least go ahead and get those in there now. So let me open up FileZilla. Boy, and can I just say, I feel like I have a very tech focused look today with the black turtleneck. It wasn't intentional. Just feeling, I was going to say Elizabeth Holmes. That's not who I want to be associated with. But yeah, kind of liking the look today. So anyways, all right, Angela, get over yourself. Okay, so here's practice layouts. We also got this set up yesterday too. So we're using, and I'm sorry I can't make this larger. I've tried to zoom in on this, and FileZilla just doesn't really doesn't do the zoom thing. So we're using SFTP, which is SSH File Transfer Protocol. I usually just call it Secure File Transfer Protocol. The host is practicelayouts.com. I leave the port empty. It's port 22. You can add it, but you don't need to add it. It's going to default to port 22. The logon type is the key file. We're using our sudo user and then the key file. This is the path to my SSH key. So we should just be able to connect. And there we go. And when you log in with on FileZilla with FTP, your local environment is here on the left, and your remote environment is here on the right. And you can even see here it says local site, and then this is the path locally to where my files are, and this is the remote site. One moment. Can you imagine if I was a tech CEO? It just sounds like a nightmare. Is that a job that anybody wants? I mean, rhetorical question. Of course, there's lots of people who want that job. Sounds like a nightmare to me. But okay. So we're in our sudo users home directory, but we need to get back to var www. So I'm going to double click the dots once, double click again, and then we're going to click on var. Then we're going to click on www, and here we are. So here again, that's our HTML for the root, Droplet, and then we've got Italia and public. And it's worth noting, do you see here who the owner and group is? I know it's tiny. It's root. All of the permissions that we did yesterday were for the HTML directory, nothing else. So when I talk more about the permissions, I think we're going to have to change these because I don't know if as a sudo user I think we're going to have to update the permissions because I don't think my sudo user permissions are going to let me push to something with an owner and group of root. So let's try it. Let's do a little experiment. I'm going to public.html. And then we want to make sure that we are only adding to the production server what we absolutely need to run the app or the site. Never, never, never use your production server like some sort of storage container. It's not a bin where you can put all your stuff that you don't need. Only put what you absolutely need in that production container. So we're not going to put anything with Git, anything like .git ignore, .ds store. I've got this markdown file. I have this PNG. I'm not going to put that in there. It's not needed to run the site. I've got some design files here. We're not going to put that in. I've got a screenshot here. I'm not going to put that in. So I'm going to put in images and I'm holding down the command key. I'm going to put in media. I don't even need this SVGs folder because I don't reference anything from that folder. I'm just keeping SVGs in the folder. I embed them in my markup. I'm going to do index.html. We want normalize, script.js, and style.css. These are the only things that I'm going to put in here. And I don't think it's going to work. Hang on one second. Oh, they did deploy. No, they're all failed. So we're going to have to change the permissions. It's a good little test. Yeah, they all failed, which is what I thought would happen. So, okay. So out of context, 2 days prior, I was watching Percy Jackson, and the main character's mom reminded me of you. Actress's name is Virginia Cull. Okay. Let's see here. I don't know if I should be Virginia Cull. Really? Okay. Well, she's like, we're all a little bit vain, aren't we? Deep down inside. We're all a little bit vain deep down inside. So, my first thought was, well, she's pretty, so that's okay. Angela, stop. Virginia Cull, The Big Ben, Grace Point, Nosferatu, Curveball, The Looming Towers. I've seen Sneaky Pete before. I don't particularly remember her. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Is this the movie you were watching? I don't think I've seen this movie. But I don't think I've seen this movie. Oh, it is a series. Percy Jackson and the Olympians TV series. Hang on. Oh, Percy's selfless mother. We love that. We love a selfless character. Okay, you know what? I'm going to watch this show. First of all, I need more shows to watch, but I will totally watch this show just based on this compliment. So thank you, because I think that this lady is very, very pretty. So I will for sure take this compliment. And why wouldn't I trust Rahul? He's been nothing but kind and gracious and generous. So I also had a very, very nice compliment yesterday after the stream from Malik. He loves it when I wear the hoodie that I had on yesterday. He calls it my TED Talk hoodie, which I think is so funny. So, and Rahul says, do they support Node.js or only Apache based? I'm so sorry. I don't know the context for this question. Are you talking about the server setup? I'm not, clarify this question for me. And Go Elmo Go says, I see it. I know what you are referencing. I agree. Well, okay. So I will totally watch this. I'm also down right now for some, like, I guess, wholesome content, something that's not too heavy, something that's not too true crime, or just something that's not too heavy. So I could go for like a nice kind of like Disney series that's maybe got a little action, but it just isn't too heavy. So I will put Percy Jackson and the Olympians on my list for watching. So thank you for that, and thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. So, okay, so we need to update our permissions. So here's how we're going to do that. Let's go find the section here. Okay. So we added the user, the pseudo user Heidi, or it says Angela here, but for us it's Heidi, to the www data user group. And what that really means is that we are sharing, we're a it means now that Heidi or that user is a collaborator with www data. So in order to be able to upload, we need to change the permissions on the folder. Right here, we did yesterday HTML. We need to do this now to italia.practicelayouts.com. We're also changing the read-write execution from 755 to 775. And again, that's for italia.practicelayouts.com. And we're also going to do this. We're going to make sure that all future files keep that group, but we have to change it to the subdirectory. So let's copy all of this into our text editor, and we can update this a little easier. So instead of HTML, we're going to change this to italia.practicelayouts.com. Just like that. So we'll start with this. Let's clear. You guys can still see this. And we have to give it the password for the pseudo user. You generally have to do a password once per session. And then we're going to change the read, write, execute permissions. And then we're going to make sure all future files keep that group. So now if we list files, let me see here. I'm going to go back out a couple. So now you can see here that they are www-data, and we've got this right here equals 755, and then we've got a recursive flag, so it should cover everything inside those folders as well. And then let's look at the, this is as good a time as any to look at the explanation from ChatGPT, so we can break this down a little bit. And again, keep in mind that my context for all of these things is WordPress, because I was a WordPress developer for a long time, and I learned all of this around the context of making sure that plugins and theme updates could happen, but that I still had the ability to deploy either with rsync or FileZilla. So that's where a lot of my background in deployment comes from. Okay, so here's the question that I asked ChatGPT. Make this a little bigger. So I made basically a screenshot, and I said for permissions, I add, ChatGPT was telling me to do something related to the users and the tutorial. And I said, well, for permissions, I add the sudo user to the www data group so I don't break Apache ownership. And I said, here's a screenshot from that part of my setup. And they said, yep, this is a legit old school, still correct pattern. And it's actually great that you're showing it explicitly, because a lot of tutorials either skip permissions entirely or hand wave them into existence. Let me break down why what you're doing is sound and where I'd add context for the stream. Adding the sudo user to www data. This is the key move. You're saying Apache owns the files, but I am allowed to collaborate with it. That's exactly the right mental model. Logging back out and back in and checking groups to verify is also the perfect teaching. Okay, so it's complimenting me. Apache owns the web root. This is the next thing. This keeps Apache happy, PHP happy, future tooling, so certbot, logs, etc. predictable. You are not fighting the web server for ownership. This avoids so many weird edge cases later. 775 with group write. This is the next thing we did. This is the crucial nuance most people miss. Owner, read, write, execute. Apache. Group, read, write, execute. That's us. Others, read and execute. So you can rsync, you can SCP, you can edit files, you can deploy builds, and you don't need sudo for everything. You don't have to flip ownership back and forth, and you're not breaking Apache permissions. So here's the next thing where we add all those things to the group. So sudo change modifications G+S, and this is for the HTML. We'll do it for our individual subdomain as well. This ensures that new files inherit www data, new folders don't drift, permissions stay stable over time. Most tutorials never mention this, and then people wonder why things randomly break later. And it said, okay, there are multiple valid, it's always telling me how to frame things. I'm like, I got it, but thank you. There are multiple valid permission strategies. This is one I've used for years. Okay, that does two things. It's trying to help me avoid a flame war on the comments, which I don't need help with. I'm good. One small clarification, not a correction. For multiple virtual hosts, I'd recommend saying this pattern applies per site directory, not for necessarily all of www data, or not for all of www. And I think I've been explicit about that up until this point. And of course, we're not using practice layouts. We're using HTML for the practice layouts route. And then we have all of these things, which we just did. Okay, and then my next comment was, do I need to reset permissions after rsync or SFTP? For me, it is very weird to see extra permissions. That's the 775 as opposed to 755. And this was, I just took a screenshot right here from my Git repository. But I also understand we need them to add the sudo user to that group. And so the short answer is no, you do not need to reset permissions after rsync or SFTP if your ownership and group model is correct, and mine is. What I'm reacting to, those extra permissions look weird, is totally understandable because a lot of tutorials mix two different deployment models and never explain the difference. Okay, the key distinction, this clears everything up. There are two valid permission strategies people use. We're using strategy A, collaborative group model. So that's where we added the sudo user to the www ownership group. You are in the www data group. Apache owns the files. Group write is intentional. Permission stays stable across deploys. This model is designed so you do not have to fix permissions after deploy. I'm happy to know that because my instinct was, where are we here? We are right. We're right here. My instinct is to come back and do this, just in case you need to reset ownership and permissions. And it gives some context here for that. Strategy B, the lockdown model. That's what this snippet is for. Apache owns the files. A human user is not in the web group. Files are deployed as the human user. Permissions must be normalized afterward. The reset snippet exists only because strategy B breaks ownership on every deploy. This is excellent context for me. I did not fully understand all of this. So why you don't need to reset after rsync or SFTP. In your setup, Apache owns var www. Your user is in the www data group. Group write is enabled. G+S ensures inheritance. So when you rsync or SFTP, files land within the correct group. Apache can read them. You can update them. Nothing drifts. That means there's nothing to fix. Resetting permissions every time would be redundant and honestly confusing for learners. This is good. Why that reset permissions block exists at all. So it's good to have. It's a recovery hammer, not a best practice. It's useful when rsync was run with the owner or perms flag. Files were uploaded as a different user. Someone used sudo inconsistently. Right here, WordPress or a script changed ownership. Happened all the time with WordPress plugins. Things are broken and you just want Apache to work again. Also happened all the time. Things were broken and I just wanted them to work, and a reset right here was the quickest way to do that. It is not something you should need in a healthy workflow. So about the extra permissions feeling, you're noticing that group write 775 and the set gid bit. That's not sloppiness, that's explicit collaboration. This isn't a multi-tenant shared host, it's your server. Security comes from SSH access control, sudo users, limited users, sane group membership, not from pretending Apache and humans never touch the same files. That's good context. Okay, so that's that. So this is the context that I just thought was incredibly helpful, and I am going to add a lot of that to these sections of my documentation. I'm also going to do a separate set of documentation just for virtual hosts. Yeah, so this has been a good education. This has been a really good education for me too. So I hope that you all were able to follow along with that. I thought it was interesting. So I think there's I think there's some, let's see what's happening in the chat. So Rahul says, it's a kid's fantasy show. You might not like it. You'd be surprised. A lot of times, here's the thing, you guys. I'm a knitter right here. I started, what is this? This is going to be a hat. I started a new hat last night. I just need things on in the background that I don't have to pay too much attention to, and that has like somewhat of a storyline, and that just sort of keeps me busy while I'm doing other things. That's all I care about, and I just don't want it to be like too heavy. So there's some Disney stuff that I really like, so I'm gonna check it out, especially if I don't have to pay for it. If it's part of one of my many streaming services and I can just turn it on and have it on in the background, that's all I care about. So, and Rahul says, we used to only have cPanel PHP for WordPress on the server. Then after Node.js came out, they started adding for Node.js app support. I was asking about that. I Googled, and yes, they support it. Interesting. Yeah, I was a cPanel user for a long time too. I think your question is about WordPress deployment. I can tell you in the early days, I was deploying WordPress with FileZilla. I was dragging and dropping. Now I just zip it up and rsync it. And then I just zip it up and rsync it. Excuse me, one second here. And either and then just unzip it once it's on the server, because it's a LAMP stack, right? Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. I know there are lots of apps that handle WordPress deployment and moving things around. I don't use any of them because I'm just so comfortable at this point doing it by hand. I'm kind of old school at this point. So, oh, does DigitalOcean have a Node app for that? That wouldn't surprise me. So, and Madhav Codes is here. Welcome. And you're noticing that I'm on ChatGPT 5.2. Is there another version? Let's see here. Is there another version? Let's see. I usually just use the default. Auto decides how long to think. I get annoyed when it has to think longer for better answers, but I obviously want the better answers. So here we are. Yes, I'm curious why that stands out to you. So tell me, give me some context around that comment. I'm curious. Let me know. Let me know what you're thinking. Okay. And also, hello, welcome. So, oh, or maybe you're just pointing out the fact that I'm using ChatGPT. So Go is a excellent defender of using AI because he has the ability to talk about its practicality, which is that we love working with AI here and using it as a proper tool for productivity without leaning too heavy on it. He's absolutely right. So, oh, and MLS Andreas is here. Hello, welcome. Just entered the live. Thank you for joining us. We are so happy to have you. Welcome to Deployment Day. So, okay. Back to the build. So I will add more context to these instructions related to all of the permissions, razzmatazz that we just went through. If that was over your head or you completely zoned out, I totally get it. I thought it was very interesting and it added a lot of context for me. There's things that I've been doing for years that I didn't fully understand. Yeah, I could have done a deeper dive to figure it out. I didn't because it's just been working for me. I have the context now and I'm satisfied with that. So, okay, one moment, hold please. So we have updated all of our permissions now for italia.practicelayouts.com. So we should be able to do this again and we should be fine. So let's come back out here and we should see this updated. Yeah, so we see www-data. So let's go back in here and we'll do this again. So we need images. Do we need media? We do need the media folder. But you know what? I don't think we need everything in the media folder. I think this is the only thing that we need. So let's do images, index.html, normalize, script.js, style.css. We'll do these first. There we go. Beautiful. And then can I just make a folder in here and create? I'm going to create directory. Media. I'll open that up. I'll drag this over. It's our video. And you can see now that the files themselves have a new owner and group of Heidi, but we share that with www data. So I think it's okay. I think it's okay. We shouldn't have to change anything. So, okay. So we need to update our DNS settings now and add the domain to DigitalOcean. I don't have either of those things open. Gosh darn it, Angela. So let me do that right now. Let me open this up. Right here. Okay. So here's DigitalOcean. We also need to, let me open up Hover. Let's see here. To authenticate. Let's see here. There's a lot happening. All right. So here's our DNS settings for practice layouts. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a new A record. We don't need a www for a subdomain. So we don't have the same issues that we have when we're just setting up a root domain that we have for a subdomain. So we're going to add an A record, and let me get into the correct project, copy. The host name is italia.practicelayouts.com. And there's our IP address. So we're treating it like a completely independent site. I guess we could just put in Italia. So it knew. It knew what I was thinking. Okay. Now we're going to add this to, we're going to add a domain. Let's see here. Why does it always take this option away? Manage domain, download zone, move to, no, I need to add a domain. But it takes away that option. I don't think we add it to the same. We have to literally add a domain. Here we go. Just didn't click enough buttons. Okay, add a domain. Italia.practicelayouts. Gotta spell it right. practicelayouts.com. And the project is Practice Layouts. We're not going to update the name servers. We covered this yesterday. It automatically adds name servers, and that's fine. We can just leave those here. And we're going to create a record. It's an A record. So we're going to say Italia. Oh, we don't have to do anything. I think we can just do this right here, since we already defined the name. So italia.practicelayouts.com will direct to this IP address, and then it's going to resolve specifically to the virtual host. So we're using one IP address for multiple websites, and we'll leave the TTL to 3600. So, and that's it. All right, so now let's go set up our virtual host. So if we go back to our project, we have two completely independent domains now. Exactly what we want. All right. So now let's CD to the Apache configuration pile. It's Apache 2. And we'll take a look what's inside here, and we're looking for the sites available directory right here. So we'll CD into here, take a look, and you can see that this is all the stuff that we did yesterday. So when we set up the droplet, the 000 default conf, this file is automatically created when you create the LAMP stack, create the droplet. And this is the port 80 HTTP virtual host file. When we installed the SSL certificate, Let's Encrypt made a copy for port 443 HTTPS, and it created a new virtual host file. So we have two virtual host files. we're going to start by making a copy of this, and then we're going to edit it and modify it to account for the subdomain. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is the part of the tutorial that I do want to look at, which is this right here. So let's make a copy of this. I'm just going to use this as a little notepad. So we're going to sudo copy this file, and we need to change this right here. So it's going to be italia.practicelayouts.com.conf. So we're going to make a copy of that file. All right, let's take a look. Here is our virtual host file, so let's edit this now. So we want to sudo nano edit this file. Okay, so what don't we need? We don't need a server alias because there's no www, right? So let's go ahead and delete that. Oh, what did I do? Hang on. Where's my freaking mouse? Here we go. Okay, hang on. What did I just do? I hit the wrong key. There we go. Okay, so it's the server alias, and I'm going to Control K to delete that line, just like that. The server name is italia.practicelayouts.com. The server admin is the same. The document root is different, right? So the document root is this. Let's copy this so we don't have to type it out. Just like that. We don't need the redirect, so I'm going to Control K to delete that. And then is there anything else here that we need to change? I don't think so. So we've got our server name, italia.practicelayouts.com. It's the same server admin. The document root we've specified. Oh, we need to change the directory. Just like that. And that's it. I'm going to take these out. I'm going to delete these. We commented them out yesterday. I'm just going to delete them. So I'm going to Control X, yes. And then we need to make sure we don't need to do any of this. We're not doing an alias. Enabling the new virtual host files. So we need to sudo that configuration file. Enable the site. And then we should be able to see, hang on, why can't you let me? Okay, you're not, let me. Hang on, I don't want to type it out. There you go. Enabling site italia.practicelayouts.com. To activate the new configuration, you need to run systemctl reload Apache 2. Authenticating for org.freedesktop.system managed units. Authentication is required to reload. Okay, so it's just asking for the sudo user password, rs. Oop, I shouldn't tell you my password, should I? Authentication complete. All right, so we should be able to see the HTTP version now. Are we going to take bets on whether or not it actually works? I always assume that nothing's going to work the first time. Italia.practicelayouts.com. Oh, you know what? We didn't specify the correct directory. Okay, so we have to, this is a good mistake to make. So we have to specify public underscore HTML. I love it. I love it when I make easy mistakes. So now we want to do this again, the sudo. Let's see if we can just, right here. Right here. So the server name is correct. We need to update this. Public underscore HTML. Just like that. We love an easy mistake. And it's already enabled. Do we need to do anything? We might need to, I don't know, maybe just reload Apache again. Well, we can do this again. Is already enabled. All right. And we should be able to take this out. Let's do this. Site doesn't support a secure connection. So that's good. We don't have HTTPS yet. That's why it's doing that. Continue. Gosh darn it. Public underscore .html. Why are you not... Did I get it wrong? I don't think so. Do I have to make sure that the server name also has public underscore HTML? Let's consult our document root. Oh, we have to put in a document root. I think I already have that in there, don't I? Hang on. No, oh, right here. Got it. Third time's a charm. Third time is a charm. Okay, we'll save it again. We'll reload again. Boom! We did it. Look at us. Look at us. Right here, baby. Okay, so now we have the port 80 HTTP version of our subdomain hooked up and ready to go. So it's really all about creating virtual hosts is really just about, let me see here. Oh, making a copy of the default root site and giving it a brand new site. And you don't need to, this isn't just something for subdomains. You can put a bunch of domains on here. So if you have one domain and you don't want to buy, you're not like a domain collector like I am, you can put all of your domains on one droplet as long as you know you have enough room on that droplet. And I'm going to put a bunch of different subdomains, possibly other sites on this droplet, which is why I chose a slightly larger droplet than I normally do. I picked the $12 droplet instead of the $6 droplet. But we could put Subdomains, we could put completely different domains on here. It's an excellent way to manage servers. You don't need to spend $6 for a brand new server. You don't need to go out and buy a bunch of new domains. This is just, I can't stress enough how unbelievably powerful this is. Oh my gosh, I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. Okay, I think I'm okay. I could just feel it coming on. I'm having some sinus issues. So this is incredibly powerful. So now that we have the port 80 virtual host created and our domain and our DNS settings have propagated, now we can do Let's Encrypt. So let's go ahead and do that next and set up our port 443 HTTPS. So let's see here where this is. So really, we're just going to do this right here. So I'm going to just copy this and we'll edit it on our little notepad here. We don't need this. We just need italia.practicelayouts.com. Just like this. And now certbot, because port 80 is set up, is going to be able to find this. Just making sure I spelled it right. I think I did. So let's go ahead and run this. One moment. Looking like a hacker, working without a GUI. Love it. I love it. I've never considered myself. I'm not capable of hacking anything, trust me. I don't have it in me. I don't understand near enough to be a hacker, although it would be fun if I did. Okay, so you can see here that it found that virtual host file right away. So it issued the certificate, it gave us the expiration date, but again, we learned yesterday that there's a timer for that. And it says here, deploying certificate, successfully deployed the certificate for italia.practicelayouts.com. And it found, because we named that file the way that we did, it found it instantly as a virtual host. And it did the same thing that it did yesterday, where it made a copy of it for port 443. So let's take a look at that. So now you can see that we have this additional right here. Let's encrypt SSL. So now we need to look at this and see what's going on in here. And I don't know if there's really anything that we're going to have to do, because again, we're not worried about a redirect or a rewrite rule for www. So that's one of the benefits of these subdomains, is that you don't have to have the redirects or the rewrite rules. That's the distinction between what we did yesterday and what we're doing today. It simplifies it. So sudo nano. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have to do anything. We've got the server name, the server admin, the document root. Yesterday we had to add a bunch of rewrite rules, and we just don't have to do that today. So, and we've got the SSL certificate in here. It's virtual host, port 443. I don't think we have to do anything. So let's just check the browser. And I bet when we hit refresh, it's going to redirect to HTTPS. Beautiful. This is it, guys. We created a virtual host. I do think that it took a while to get here because I digressed a lot today and I was going over all those permissions. I think it's important to talk about those permission distinctions. I will make sure, look at that, beautiful, HTTPS. What more can you ask for? I think that's an important distinction to make. Yeah. It adds a lot of context. So And Rahul says, Let's Encrypt is doing God's work. And I could not agree more. It is, I absolutely agree that Let's Encrypt is doing God's work. So back in the day, 10 years ago, SSL certificates were what I like to call a cash cow for hosting companies. Companies like GoDaddy and Bluehost and all the crappy shared hosting servers were charging $50, $60, $70, $80 for SSL certificates. And Let's Encrypt came on the scene and was like, encryption should be for everybody, not just the people who can afford it, right? And they were a pain in the butt. They were it wasn't that hard. If you can do what I've been showing you all weekend, you can install like a custom certificate. But this greatly simplified the process. It was definitely a pain in the butt, in my opinion. So, okay, what's next? I think that we should do another subdomain. What do you guys think? Let's go look at Git. We're at an hour and 12 minutes. We got time. Let's do this a couple of times. Repetition is the best way to learn. We don't need to do the homepage clone. That's Fiber and Craft. That's already been deployed. The Lemon Stack is another project that's also already been deployed. Well, okay, maybe it's just better to look at what have we actually done on this channel. Let's see here. So this was the project we just did. This was Fiber and Craft. What other projects have we worked on this year? We could do the blog, which is Ocean, Style Guide, You Are Here, Masonry, Product List with Cart. Let's go ahead and do... We have a couple. We could do the Sanmari products also. Let's do the Ocean. So let's do ocean.practicelayouts.com, which is this right here. And Rahul says, I used to work with Zero SSL, which I haven't heard of. Is there a difference between premium and free SSL? Have you found any issues? None. I don't think there's a difference. I think it's a way to make money. I don't know what the difference could possibly be. Full disclosure, I don't have enough experience to even recognize if there's a difference. Is encryption, I would be surprised if somebody told me that Let's Encrypt somehow doesn't have as much encryption as a paid encryption. Isn't there a standard for encryption? That's my understanding. So I have found no issues. In 10 years of using Let's Encrypt and CertBot, I've never had a problem. Everything updates every 90 days. I never have issues getting the SSL certificates installed. If I do have issues, it's my fault. It's because I screwed something up. So let's go ahead and deploy this. So what do we need to do? Let's go back out to, hang on. So let's go ahead and make a directory, and we will call it ocean.practicelayouts.com. Oh, we have to sudo. There we go. Now let's cd into this directory. There's nothing in here, so we'll make another directory, make directory, and it's going to be public _ HTML. Oh, gosh darn it, Angela. There we go. So we can CD into this now. And if we go to FileZilla and we can refresh, now we've got ocean.practicelayouts.com and public_HTML. Now let's update our permissions for this directory. And actually, I think we have those right here. So let's update everything from Italia to Ocean. And we'll change our group and owner first. And then we'll change the read, write, execute. And I'm going to work on this week. I'll make sure that I get a new, I'll get this virtual host added to the DevOps repository. And then let's do this right here. And then let's go ahead and update our DNS settings. I don't think we need this. Let's update our DNS settings. So we're going to add a new A record. And the host name is going to be Ocean. And what is our... There we go. So we'll give that a moment to propagate. Now let's add a new domain. We'll add domain. And it's going to be ocean.practicelayouts.com. And the project is Practice Layouts, so it knows which, I think this is so it knows which IP address to grab, or just which project to associate it with, rather. Just making sure I spelled it correctly. We're not going to change the name servers. We'll go ahead and create an A record. It's going to be Ocean. Oh, gosh darn it, Angela. There you go. And I like that it updates this automatically here. We'll choose the IP address. We'll create the record. Now we can go back to Practice Layouts. We'll give this a moment to propagate. And now we're going to start this process over again. So let's clear this. We'll CD back to our Apache configuration file. And we want to go into the sites available directory. And we'll list these files. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to make a copy of our port 80 default configuration file. And I think we have that right here. So we updated this. So we'll go ahead and do that again. And we should see that file created now. So now we'll edit this. So we want to sudo nano, and we don't need the alias, and we don't need the redirect. We want to make sure that we have the correct document root. So I'm just going to grab this. Oh, and don't forget, whoops, don't forget public_HTML. Public_HTML. So we have the document root, the directory for these permissions. We have the server name. Oh, we have to update the server name. ocean.practicelayouts.com. We have the directory document root with public underscore HTML, the correct directory. I'm just going to come down here. I'm going to delete these. They're commented out anyways. We'll save this. And let's see if our DNS settings, well, no, we actually need to make sure that we are enabling. Do I have that copied here? I don't think so. Right here. It's this right here. So we'll say sudo a2 enable site, and it's this right here. Enabling site. Now we have to do the system ctail reload. So we'll sudo all right. What did it, I feel like it had us do something different. What was the other thing here that we had to do differently for authentication? To activate the new configuration, that's what we just did. It didn't make us jump through those authentication hoops. I don't know why. I don't know. Okay, so technically if the DNS is propagated, we should be able to see ocean.practicelayouts.com. Okay, I don't think the DNS has propagated yet. We might have to give it a few 10 or 15 minutes. So let's give it a few minutes and then we'll check it. We either made a mistake. Oh no, we haven't deployed anything yet. Duh, Angela. There's nothing to view because we haven't deployed anything yet. So let's go find it. Let's go find it. What did I call it here? Did I just call it blog? Yeah, it's right here. Okay. And we also used SAS. Yeah, we use SAS. We don't need SCSS files. Okay, so we need the about page, the blog page, the blog slider. There's a contact page, a full width page, JavaScript, a masonry page, an ocean page. We don't need SCSS or SVG. We don't need the get attributes, get ignore, license, QA, readme. We need index.html and we need style.css. I think that's all we need. So let's do this. Just refresh and we'll see if this works. It's working. Yay. Because we did update our permissions, the group and the owner. So now let's see. Boom. It always works eventually, right? So we're on ocean.practicelayouts.com. It's not secure because we haven't done the SSL certificate yet, but let's make sure our pages all work. Beautiful. Beautiful. Excellent. We love it. We love it. Okay, so now let's install our SSL certificate. So we've got HTTPS on port 443. So now we want to run certbot. So do we have that? Yes, we do, right here. So we'll run certbot. And easy peasy, it found the Apache configuration file, it made a copy, it issued the certificate. So now I don't think we have to do anything to that Apache configuration file. I mean, I don't think we did anything to the last one, right? Because it makes a copy of the port 80 file. There are no redirects. So let's just take a little look-see here. So here's our Let's Encrypt SSL file. So we'll sudo nano Yep, here's our SSL certificate issued. Beautiful. We can close that without editing. So I'm pretty sure now that if we go to the browser and refresh, this is going to update and automatically, because browsers are always looking for HTTPS first. Beautiful. Look at that. You guys, so easy. So easy. Yeah, I will definitely get the GitHub repository updated this week to account for all of the virtual host. Yeah, for all of the virtual host stuff. So, and I also think that it would be good to do I mean, we could definitely do another. Do I have any other URLs? Do I have anything that we want to move over? Let me see here. Let me just do a little look-see here. I don't think I really have anything else, but I don't remember. I do, but I have plans for them. So I'm not going to worry about doing any other domains for now. But do you kind of get the gist? Do you see a pattern? Do you understand what we're doing here? Especially after all the time that we've spent, because we've spent a lot of time talking now about the difference between port 80 and port 443, which is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS, and making sure that you are always accounting for, when you're dealing with your root domain, that you are always accounting for www, and that if you have a new site, I don't think it counts as, it matters as much what you choose, if you just go with the root or if you go with www. But that if you're working with an existing site and you're moving to a new server and you're updating an IP address, that you're still maintaining that SEO credibility by not switching from www to the root or vice versa. I think we've spent a lot of time talking about that. So hopefully that makes sense to you, why that's important. As long as you are taking those things into consideration, I think you'll be fine. Yeah, I love this. This is awesome. Let's see what's happening in the chat here. Rehan Anwar is here. Hello, welcome. Aaron Motlick is here. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Perfect. Thank you. Now we need a homepage for practice layouts. Yes. I am going to make I wanted to make a homepage for practice layouts that was like kind of talking about my philosophy about why I think project-based learning is so important and why I want people to practice building layouts. So that is going to be the focus of practice layouts. Yeah. So maybe I'll put that on the list. We could do that next. Well, the next project that we're going to do is we're going to rebuild my responsive video gallery site, and then maybe we could do practice layouts after that. So I think that would be a great idea. Rapul says, one question, does it automatically push in the live URL, what we push into our GitHub? If not, can it be linked with an extra setup? I think it's called CI, continuous integration, continuous deployment, I think is what CI/CD is. Excellent point. And I did mean to talk about this. When you use FileZilla and FTP, this is completely independent of anything that you're doing on Git or GitHub. So On FileZilla, you are dragging and dropping from your remote environment to the from your local environment to the remote server. It is totally independent of Git and GitHub. Make sure that you are really diligent about your version control, because I promise you that when you start dragging and dropping from local to remote, you're going to override something that you didn't mean to do. You're going to delete something you didn't mean to delete. Usually for me, it's that I overrode something that I didn't mean to. And if you aren't diligent with your own version control and backups and basically using your GitHub repository as a way to back up your work and literally version control, you're not going to have any way to recover those files. So this is a really good question. I think what we should be doing in 2026, this next year, is we should be talking about writing GitHub actions so we can deploy directly from our GitHub repository. Here's the process that I like to use for deployment. So I obviously will push from local to Git, and then I'll use a GitHub page as my staging or development environment. My preference is that I would do a pull request from my staging branch to my production or main branch, and that pull request would trigger a GitHub action which deploys to a remote server, production server. That's the process that I personally am comfortable with and I think is a good front-end workflow. So I think to continue the DevOps deployment conversation for 2026 would be to write GitHub actions, and which is essentially syncing from your GitHub repository to your DigitalOcean Droplet. That's really what it is. You're just writing an action, a GitHub action, which is what? A YAML file where you've got your SSH key set up and specified. You're basically hooking up your GitHub repository to the DigitalOcean Droplet via SSH. You're doing an rsync and you're deploying, and then you're making a list of files to exclude, right? Because you don't want to include like .git or gitignore or anything that's like a markdown file. And yeah, you're deploying from GitHub to DigitalOcean that gets triggered on a pull request. That's my preferred method. So I think that would be a good best practice, a good way to do it. And yeah, that's exactly what that is. CI/CD, which is like continuous integration, continuous deployment. I think that's what that stands for. But as long as it's understood that FileZilla or even just an rsync from your local to the remote, completely independent from GitHub, completely independent from any kind of version control. So I hope that makes sense. That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So this is all I have today. This is what I got. I think this is enough though. What do you guys think? Anybody else have any questions? Anything that they're wondering about? I'm going to make sure that I get all of the documentation updated. I'm going to close this out. I can log out of the server. I'll make sure that I get this updated this week. I'm going to also log out of FileZilla. Makes me nervous to have things open for too long. I don't want to like accidentally push any buttons. So yeah, I'll go ahead and write up a virtual host set of documentation this week covering everything. I'm going to add more context around the permissions that I got from ChatGPT today. And yeah, I think our DevOps documentation is coming along very, very nicely. This is so much information. And I really would love, this is optional. You must be watching for a reason. You must be genuinely curious at how to do this. if you decide to do this, if you decide to sign up for DigitalOcean or any kind of cloud server and do some of these things, I would love to know what your experience is. I would love to know if you followed my guides or if you followed the tutorial, what helped you, what didn't help you, what do you feel like is missing, what do you think needs more explanation. But I feel like this is fairly comprehensive. It's the most complete documentation I've written ever. I've had this sort of documentation in snippets here and there in lots of different files. So this is the first time that I've really gotten everything compiled all together in one spot. And it's working well for me. I'm not just doing it in the streams or doing it for videos that I post on YouTube, but I'm legitimately following this documentation for my client sites, my own personal sites, other projects that I have, and it's working really, really well. It's very smooth. So if I do say so myself. So no questions from Malik. Was enjoyable watching the process. Good. Well, I'm glad. Excellent questions today in the chat. Love the engagement, and happy H3F6H is here. Excuse me. Excuse me. Is the live stream available for replay? Yes, all of my live streams are available for replay. So once the stream ends, it'll be available for replay. Absolutely. And Rahul says, not going to lie, this deployment guide is seriously underrated. I hope more people find this. Maybe after editing in a single video, they'll find. Yeah, I'm definitely doing, I don't think what I did today is exactly suitable for an edited video. The live streams tend to be a bit of a testing ground for me. It's kind of where I work out the kinks and answer questions. And then I'm usually better prepared to go back and record a simpler, more straightforward, a little more slightly polished version of this, but there will definitely be a more polished version of the virtual hosts. What I discovered in my Creator Studio, which I'll show you here, is that I have the ability to create courses, which I think courses is kind of like a glorified playlist. That's what it sort of appears to me. I said I would never do courses, but I should clarify that by saying I'll probably never do paid courses. But what I would like to do is a bunch of different deployment content and then kind of group it under a course here. So that's kind of one of my goals for 2026. And let me show you here. I actually have a list of deployment related content that I would like to show you. Here it is. So I have this. Add a virtual host to a droplet. So we did this today. Set up a droplet and a root domain with FileZilla. Set up a droplet and a root domain with rsync. So we basically done these three things. Set up a droplet with a www domain. I talked about that yesterday. Set up a subdomain. I think that counts today for what we did. Set up domain redirects. This is a good one. This is basically this is a good example. So I have my personal website is AngelaJHolden.com. J, my middle initial. Because when I bought a domain name for myself more than a decade ago, Angela Holden was already taken. Well, guess what? It suddenly became available, and a couple years ago, I bought it. So what I would like to do is just set up a virtual host for angelaholden.com, but make it a redirect. So anybody who types in angelaholden.com, they just don't get the J in there. It automatically redirects to angelajholden.com. So that's what I want to do there. Deploy to a directory of an existing domain. That would just basically be if you create a directory. We could do this next time too, where you just basically create a directory or a folder in an existing domain, which doesn't require any virtual host, any DNS setting, anything, but you could still do lots of landing pages or mini sites that way if you didn't want to do subdomains, and then write a GitHub action, which we just talked about. So I have, a list of deployment and DevOps related content that I want to do this year. And then I was going to group all of that stuff together as a course, basically, as a course on front-end development DevOps for people, if people were interested in that kind of content. I think DevOps and what we're doing lends perfectly to this type of content. So, in my opinion. Let's see here. And Happy is saying, have you taken any certifications, for example, IBM skills or those from microcomputers to improve your level? I haven't, because really I'm a front-end developer. I do front-end. What I really enjoy doing more than anything else is vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and building UIs. That's really what I prefer doing, what I am best at. And the DevOps part of this is just because when I started learning basically web design and development back in 2009, 2010, I was like, okay, I like, how do I make this a thing? How do I buy a domain? How do I put this on a server? Like, the two for me just went hand in hand. It wasn't an option to not do both. That's why I started learning DevOps, because I was immediately like, okay, I have this idea. I'm not going to keep it to myself. I want to buy a domain name and I want it to be a thing that actually lives on the internet. So DevOps to me just sort of went hand in hand with front-end development. I'm not an expert at Apache or Linux or anything like that. I know what I need to know in order to get things deployed and to hopefully keep a server locked down, safe, secured, things like that. So beyond that, I haven't explored any additional certifications or anything like that. So... Oh, and Rahul says front-end masters should have you as one of their instructors. Well, that's a nice compliment. I'm not going to lie. I'll be honest, I wouldn't mind if somebody came along and found my channel and was like, we like her. We need her. We need her. But I haven't really been out pursuing that. So I love teaching. I love streaming. I love answering questions. I love solving problems and figuring stuff out. So that's that. So, all right, everybody. I think that's it for today. This was a super fun weekend. I had so much fun. Thank you to everybody who was here today. Let's see who was in the chat. We had Malik and Rahul, our mods in the chat. Monique was here. I saw Monique hanging out for a little bit. And we had Madhav's Code. We had MLS Andreas was here. Rehan, Aaron Motlick, Happy. And yeah, thank you to everybody who hung out with me this weekend. This was super fun. We're going to get back to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript next weekend. We're going to rebuild my responsive video gallery app. This buys me a little bit of extra time too to prep for that, which I hadn't really yet. So that's good. We set up some virtual hosts. We set up a new server, did lots and lots of learning. So I guess that's it. Everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Have a great week. And I will see you in my next one. Bye-bye.